Hey, it's AC. Welcome to my house. Thanks for tuning in live. We're live streaming here on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Discord, and more. I'm getting a message. We're having trouble streaming to Facebook. It may be an issue on Facebook. We'll keep trying. Okay. Well, possibly we are not on Facebook, but I get an error message that we're trying. The show must go on. So thanks for tuning in wherever you're tuning in from, whether you're tuning in live or later. We are ready to rock and roll. Today, I am talking about the 5 things that new real estate investors should avoid. Five property types specifically. So what I mean by that is, a lot of new investors, and you might be in this camp if you're watching, are sort of frozen and they don't know what to buy, and they're comparing product A with product B and location C and price point D, and it's just overwhelming. That's overwhelming for an experienced investor. So what I always try to do is narrow your scope. You always want to be comparing oranges with oranges. I guess that phrase is apples with apples, but I call it oranges with oranges now. Let's roll with that. So what I mean is, you might find 2 great deals, and they're so great, but they're so different, you can't move on them. Meaning, one deal is a duplex that generates $500 a month. For the same price, you found something in a different city that's a townhome that's halfway built, and you just see an appreciation play, and it'll return, you expect it to return $50,000, increase $50,000 in value for whatever reason in 2 years. So you have two different things that are good investments. One's more of a cash flow, $500 every month. Wonderful. That's tough to find. And then something where you can almost get instant equity. You just got to finish this project and you make $50,000. And what I see is new investors don't buy either one of them, because they're like, I'm torn. I'm torn between the 2 winners, and then they pick no winners because they can't make a decision. So you always want to narrow your scope. Hey, I'm only looking for duplexes in this zip code. I'm only looking for properties in this school district. I'm only looking at this price point, and it's got to be a single family or a quad. Always try to narrow your scope. And then what happens is, if you have this very narrow scope, you're not looking at everything under the sun. You're not evaluating everything under the sun. You are just looking within this narrow scope. And what happens is, you look at 5 oranges, all the same, then one's going to pop out, right? If you're looking at 5 duplexes and you look comparing the cash flow and the price point, one is going to have better cash flow than the rest at the same price point, right? And you're not worried about what school district do I need to be in, what subway stop do I need to be walkable in, because you're only looking at properties that are walkable to the same subway stop, or whatever criteria you've painted for yourself. So you really want to narrow that scope. And so what I'm going to do here is actually help narrow a lot of scope for new real estate investors, and just say, take these 5 property types off the table. You don't have to worry about these 5 property types. We're just going to take it off the table. So hopefully Facebook started working. I got an error message. It wasn't, but I don't get that error message anymore. Well, actually, I do still get that error message. Anyway, sorry if you're not there. But thank you for tuning in. Regardless, if you're listening to this later on my House of AC Facebook page, you can watch past videos there. Also, there's a House of AC podcast. This exact same content is condensed a little bit, edited down to be listened later in a podcast form. And also, I take some of the highlights, put them on Instagram, TikTok, and so you can't get rid of me. I'm going to find you in one of your social media feeds, and I'm going to keep Trojan horsing myself into your feeds until you're like, oh, I want to get into real estate investing, or I want to invest in crypto, which are the 2 topics I talk about the most. But join the group, join the community, House of AC Facebook page. I've got a Discord. I'm going to be launching an NFT at some point to you guys, to teach you about NFTs and cryptocurrency, and also have a real estate angle with it as well. So a lot going on here, a lot to stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in, and let me sort of jump right into it. All right. Number 1 thing that new real estate investors should avoid is buying a house you want to live in. Yes, that's right. A lot of times I hear new real estate investors who say, "Hey, I want to keep this house I bought as a primary residence, go buy another one and rent it out." That's okay. That's straddling the line, but I promise you, you'll always make more money if that's your number one key. Maybe that's not your number one goal, but if your number one goal is to make as much money as you possibly can, you are going to have to buy properties you don't want to live in. Why is that? Well, you're evaluating the deal differently. When you're looking at properties you want to live in, it becomes an emotional decision. It becomes a lifestyle decision. You're picturing yourself in the house and walking to the stores and eating at the restaurants and visiting the dog parks. It's something that you're visualizing as what you want for yourself. Now, I would imagine you have pretty high standards of what you want for yourself. And those standards have a cost. Typically, that cost means you're in an area where houses cost more and property taxes might be higher. It's just a more expensive home. You don't get as big of a house because you're in a more desirable area. All these things obviously affect your return on investment. Something that you're buying that's sort of an A class property is high end, higher end, super nice. You can definitely rent it, and I'm sure you can make some money, but you won't make as much money if you evaluated a deal on a spreadsheet and you just took the emotion out of it, took the lifestyle, the visualizations you have of yourself, and just look at it on a spreadsheet. You're going to find much better deals in lesser neighborhoods. And that's what you should do, because if you're real estate investing and if you're renting it out, you're not living there. So those dreams and those pictures and those movies playing in your head, that's that's not ever going to happen because you're effectively not ever going to live in that house. Um, and you got to think of your tenants. So your tenants have those same dreams and wishes, right? It doesn't matter where you buy your house. You could buy the house in the second most crime-ridden area, the most second most dangerous place in the world. And you know what? The tenants would love to live there because you probably attracting tenants from the worst crime-ridden neighborhood, and they have these dreams and visions of living in this neighborhood that's next door and is safer, right? Like, everyone has different points in their life and they have these different visions. So yours might not match your tenants. All you have to do is find a house that's livable and safe, right? The neighborhood safeness, a landlord can't control that. But sort of, if you have lead paint peeling in your house, you've got asbestos, falling from the ceilings, whatever, that's obviously unsafe. You can control that. I found that most tenants, all they want is a landlord that will return their call in 24 hours, or their email or their text message, however you have it set up. I didn't say you have to fix things in 24 hours. You just have to acknowledge them within 24 hours. And then what I get is, you are the best landlord I've ever had. You've acknowledged my request, right? So all this to say, if you're buying in a property that you want to live in, you're going to be overpaying. You're not going to be making as much money. And it feels like a safe bet as an investor, especially a first-time investor, someone who wants to make a safe bet because they're entering uncharted territory. It's going to be a little scary, but like everything, more risk, more reward, right? If you buy the safest property, the newest construction, and the nicest neighborhood, pay a premium dollar for it. Well, it's really hard to make money when you find a tenant for that. You could charge more for rent, but the delta between all your expenses and the income is going to be very, very small than when you would buy a property that's maybe transitioning and upcoming. Also, sort of those upcoming traditional properties, not only do they cash flow more, and cash flow is the difference between your rental income minus all your expenses, you're going to get way more cash flow the lower down the spectrum you're willing to go. So look at real estate on a spectrum: A, B, C, D. A's the properties that you want to live in, the most desirable parts of town, and D, probably the less desirable parts of town. You're always going to make more money in D than A, for two reasons. One, it's more headache, more risk, right? The tenants are more transient. They might lose their job. You might have a lot of turnover. If it's in a crime area, maybe they end up in jail. Maybe they, whatever, skip town because of their own safety reasons, things like that. So the property values are really, really low, but you can, if you have it tenanted and your tenant pays for it, you're going to be making a lot of money. The difference, because typically $500 is like almost a minimum if someone's going to pay for an apartment. But if you can buy a house for $20,000-$30,000 in a terrible neighborhood, make $500 a month, wow, that's quite amazing. Now, alternatively, if you buy an A-class neighborhood, you're going to be spending way more money, which means you're only getting one property instead of multiple properties, and you're only going to possibly make $20 a month. But there's no risk. It's very, very little risk. That tenant's probably going to take care of your property. Probably could be there for a long time, out of sight, out of mind. And it's just the difference between investing in mutual funds, super safe, boring, hands off. You can make money, but you'll make more money investing in individual stocks. Like if you bought 10 different individual stocks or like 10 different houses in different neighborhoods, that's probably going to have a better return than your mutual fund. It's going to be more risky. One or two may tank, but 8 might completely take off. And then maybe D would be cryptocurrency, very volatile, but you could make $1 million quickly, or it could go to zero. And so that's the other thing. If you're investing in really high-end neighborhoods that you want to live in, well, that is nowhere to go up. It's already at the top, right? It can only go down, but most likely high-end neighborhoods stay high-end forever. But what happens is all the middle neighborhoods and low-end neighborhoods, they are all pushing. They're all getting development. You've got the community building these neighborhoods up. So you're more likely to have a lower neighborhood become a mid-tier neighborhood, and you have a mid-tier neighborhood always striving to be a top-tier neighborhood. So you have appreciation growth on these other properties and neighborhoods that you may not want to live in, where if you're only investing in top-tier places that you want to live in, well, they're basically always going to be plateaued. And you are hinging on what's happening in the market. So if the market goes up 3%, yours goes up 3%. If the market goes down 10%, it goes down 10%. You don't have those big upswings that you would in the more transitional neighborhoods. So just keep that in mind. So that's number one thing for new investors. Don't invest in something you want to live in. It's just too safe, and you're not going to get the returns. And it's that's going to excite you. That's going to get you to house fire. That's going to get you to have a decent cash flow and appreciation that will drastically change your life financially. Number two, this is the second thing that new investors should not invest in. It's new construction. Again, a lot of new investors are so risk adverse. They're just too much risk adverse. And sometimes they don't even make a move. And you might find yourself in this situation. I know so many people who've been looking at properties for 2 years. And, no matter what, I can't get them to pull the trigger. And if they find yourself in this situation, just think about every single I would imagine every single property you passed on over the past 2 years, it probably went up 15%. Like you would have made money no matter what. Any property, in most cases, you would have made money if you would have just bought 2 years ago. And the thing is, that's not in this market. I have that conversation every day. Hey, Alan, when should I buy? 2 years ago when you should have bought, when you asked me the first time. Like that's always the case. And even if the market goes down and you bought a property at closing and it's cash flowing on day one, the rents don't change. The price of the house might go up and down, but the rents don't change. And if it does, it's a 12-month lag. So just sitting on the sidelines is the worst thing you can do. But new construction is number two. Do not buy new construction. And this is also got flavors to it. So first, you are buying a property, if you're buying new construction, because you don't want to worry about repairs. You want something that's great. You want the new and exciting, shiny thing. It's close to following in the category of a house you want to live in, I would imagine, if you're buying new construction. But new construction is also, you're paying the top dollar for that property. At any market, at any time, the new constructions are selling at a premium compared to every other property that's not new construction. So if you're trying to invest in new construction, you're going in, buying it at top dollar. That's the most that house will ever be sold for outside of the real estate economy moving. Like you have no way to add value to this house. It's impossible. It's like driving a new car off the lot. It's now, as soon as you buy it, it's just the only way up is down in terms of its condition. The HVAC and the roof, everything's going to start aging. Every tenant who's living in it, it's going to just put slight wear and tear on the property. Um, all these things are going to devalue your property. And when you go to sell it, now you have a 10-year-old property competing with other new constructions. So your returns are not going to be as good in any sort of investment in new construction. It's just buying at the top, buying at the premium. You want to do the exact opposite. You want to buy a property that's got some age on it, some wrinkles, and then you add value to it. You're going to have to change the roof and the HVAC and the hot water heater every 15 years, no matter what, right? So if you buy new construction, sure, the clock doesn't start until day one, and you got 15 years. But you could do the opposite: buy a property that's 15 years old, and you just put in, and you're going to get it at a discount because it's 15 years old. Then you buy a new HVAC whenever it dies, a new roof whenever it's dead. You could probably extend it 2 or 3 years, new hot water heater. And now you've got everything new. You breathe new life into this, and you've actually increased the value. So you bought something, and you're going to have to replace things anyway, and you increase the value, which is what you want to be doing in investment. You want to be adding value, improving upon it, not taking a property and just letting it age and sag over time. Every new construction's shiny the day it's done, and it's going to feel dated in 5 years, in 10 years. So you are going to have to do cosmetics at some point, because new construction, you're going to have the latest trends, the latest backsplashes, the latest color palette. They do that to get the top dollar when it's done. 5 years, maybe 7, 10 years, definitely everything's going to feel dated. It's going to be like, oh, I remember when that was in style. I remember that backsplash 10 years ago. And so you bought a new construction, you got to put money into it anyway. So might as well buy something that doesn't have as much money, or that needs that facelift anyway, and you do it for it. And here's the thing: you can rent out a property that is dated. So just because you buy a dated property doesn't mean you have to go in on day one and fix up everything. What I like to do is, hey, let's rent it out in its as is dated shape. And then when I want to sell, then I fix it up and everything's fresh and new, and then I sell it. Or if I have trouble attracting a tenant, then I know, okay, I need to update the kitchens, change the laminate to granite or whatever. But I definitely don't want to put granite in a house or a rental if no one else in that neighborhood has granite. Like, why have the nicest house for a tenant to live in? They're not going to appreciate it. So keep that in mind. Number 3, vacant land. So this is also, I do not think new investors should invest in vacant land. Vacant land is difficult. And I should have prefaced this whole list by saying, I'm not saying you can't make money. Every time I sort of talk about this, someone's going to say, hey, my cousin, my uncle, my sister made money in vacant land or in new construction or a house I want to live in. You can make money. You're not going to make as much money. And there's other ways to make more money out there. Vacant land, the way you make money in vacant land typically is you either assemble it with other vacant land, so that now you've got a parcel, just like on a Monopoly board game, you've got the middle piece, and you now can assemble the other properties on either side, and you can build a hotel. Like, you're assembling land. So that's great if you got that missing puzzle piece. But typically what it means is you buy one piece, and then you've got to negotiate with one owner on the other side and another owner on the other side, so you can build and assemble this larger parcel. That takes time, and there's no guarantee that's going to happen. Second way you make money off vacant land is improving upon it. So there's, think of it as a totem pole of ways to make money in real estate. You've got at the very bottom, vacant land. Someone can come in and they could just rezone it from residential to commercial, commercial to industrial, industrial to agriculture, whatever it is. That is one way you can make money off vacant land. And people do that all the time. It's slow moving. It usually takes variances and meetings with zoning boards and politicians and neighbors support. And that's and it's not guaranteed. And it's very slow moving. But obviously, if you get to the finish line, you could make good money by just rezoning a property. Now the next layer on that totem pole, someone can come in and say, all right, great, you've zoned it to this better property. Now I'm going to improve upon that. And so what that means is, hey, if I zoned it residential, now I'm going to run pipes and electric and public sewer to this property, because that's very time consuming and very expensive. Is the sewer in the middle of the street, or is it down at the cul-de-sac? Do you have to, run that sewer and dig up the road and re-pour the road? How can you get this property tapped into the public utilities? Very expensive, very time consuming, but you're adding tremendous value to the property once you get it done. Again, you're going to need money to do a lot of these things. So first time investors a lot of times are cash strapped, and this is a way to get a lot of money going to get these projects off the ground. Alternatively, it could be that you took this land and it got rezoned industrial, and now you got to build a parking lot and a storage bay and pave the road and have curb cutouts to the main access, and change the direction of the driveway for semi trucks or whatever it is. You have to improve upon this property. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and there's no guarantee that there's a buyer at the other end. If you do, sure, great. But this is probably something best left to people who do it full time. So you're up against the time commitment and the cost. And here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, I've got $100,000 sitting in my checking account. I'm just going to buy this commercial lot on the corner. I think this area is going to take off, and I'll just buy it in cash and do nothing. And then I'll just sell the land in 5 years when it's worth more. Great. Here's what you're doing in the meantime. You're paying property taxes every year. So it's costing you money, even though you bought it in cash. You don't have a mortgage, and no one's going to give you a mortgage to just buy a property and sit on it and do nothing with. So you do have to buy it in cash. And then 2, you're paying property taxes. And 3, if some, homeless person, kids screwing around, hurt themselves on your property, you're still liable. So why put all this risk on yourself on vacant land? And you can definitely make more money putting that money in any other real estate investment. At least you might as well buy something that's cash flowing $100 a month. At least it's paying down your mortgage balance. You're getting some income. It should cover your property taxes, everything. That's such a better investment than paying property taxes on a vacant land, and you've got a bunch of liability associated with it. And there's no guarantee that in 5 years the neighborhood is going to change. That commercial is going to be worth more, right? You if you don't know what you're doing, sometimes they're under some of these vacant lands. There's a reason why they're vacant. It could be that there was an oil spill, or at one point it was a gas station and there's underground leaky tanks, and that it takes $1 million to excavate all that stuff. A dry cleaner was there and spilled chemicals. All the stuff that if you're buying vacant land, you should get an environmental survey, and that's thousands of dollars. And you're not just buying an empty lot with no risk. That your risk is everything underneath that you can't see, and you're going to have to bore and dig to really get soil samples to see what you're buying. So keep that in mind when you're buying vacant land, and actually get it out of your mind if you're a new investor trying to buy vacant land. Number 4 on the list of things new investors should avoid, property types new investors should avoid: foreclosures. This was huge during the financial crash. Everyone wanted to buy a foreclosure. It just seemed like free, easy money. And in some ways it was, and that may be the market where you could buy foreclosures. In this market, not possible. Any property, any house, we have such a housing shortage, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're priced right, you can list your house for sale, and you're going to get what you want for it, if not more. You're going to get multiple offers, and you're going to get a bidding war for it. So it doesn't matter if you bought any time in the last 30 years, it's worth more today than it was within the last 30 years. So whatever mortgage you have on it, you're probably not at risk at foreclosure. Just put a for sale sign in your yard, call your local realtor. If you're in Atlanta, call me. I'll put a sign in the yard, and you will have that thing sold in minutes. You're going to have multiple offers. So not much is going in the foreclosure steps. Very difficult to find the product of a property going foreclosure because the market's so hot. And we are coming out of the moratorium where there was no foreclosure. So definitely that took a whole beating on people living in the foreclosure market, because there was nothing going to foreclosure. Nothing could be foreclosed on, but we're sort of outside of that window now. But again, it comes back to, there's also a housing shortage for renters. So if you have a property that you want to rent, you're going to have multiple applicants. If you have a property you want to sell, you're going to have multiple buyers. So very few things will ever be meat on the bone as an investment for new realtors that have the word foreclosure wrapped around it. Also, when you buy a foreclosure, you're taking on a lot of risk. Many times you have to pay cash. You have to pay cash directly to the bank who owns it on the foreclosure steps. So that weeds out a lot of first-time investors. So don't waste your time unless you can step up to the plate and produce the entire amount in cash. Further, you most of the time don't even get access to the property before you commit to buying this property. You may get an address an hour before the auction, and there might be someone living in it. You won't be able to tour the property, so you may have to peek in the windows. If it's vacant, it's mostly likely going to be boarded up, condition sight unseen. You're going to buy a property as is. This is all very difficult to for a first-time investor to stomach, and so you could buy a foreclosure, which means you buy the rights from the mortgage company, but the underlying property may have title issues. It may have a second or third lien that you have to deal through, tax deeds, tax liens. So it's not easy breezy. It's not simple. That discount that feels like it's a discount may not really be there once you can actually look under the hood on that property only after you buy it. Now, in a mid-tier market, lower market, I also don't necessarily recommend foreclosures. For a lot of those reasons I just outlined, cash could prevent you the underlying risk. But two, you are trying to do something as a beginner, and you're trying to do something as a weekend warrior outside your day job, as a first-time real estate investor, and you are competing against people who do this as their full-time job. There's all cash, deep pocket, well-heeled investors who have a well-oiled machine. They've got they know how to evaluate a property by just sticking their head in the crawl space. They can size up the budget because they've got 20 properties that they've done in the last 6 weeks that are very similar, exact same, and they estimate the worst case scenarios. So they've got their numbers really tight. They've got the crews that can start 10 minutes after purchasing the property, instead of a new investor who now has got to go interview contractors, and that contractor can't start for 3 months, and they might not be a good contractor, and you have to fire them. And the name in the foreclosure business is speed. And if you're a new real estate investor, speed is going to be key in the foreclosure business. So that's another reason I would say avoid foreclosures. You're just up against a full-time machine. I know people who do this full time, and they're struggling to make money in it. So I can't imagine a first-time real estate investor doing better. Again, caveat, you can make money. There could be an opportunity that you can't refuse. I know there's stories out there. It's just my blanket advice is, one of the 5 properties to avoid for new investors. Number 4, foreclosures. So if you're just tuning in, I'm going through the top 5. First one is that you want to avoid a house that you want to live in. That's an emotional and a lifestyle decision, not a spreadsheet decision on what makes a good investment. 2, you want to avoid new construction. New construction is you're buying it at a premium at the time it's built, and it'll just deteriorate over time. You want to do the opposite, buy a deteriorated property and bring it back to life. 3, vacant land, very slow moving around the house of AC real estate investing flywheel, which basically tells you knowledge and confidence turns into action and experience. And to get all those things on vacant lands, very slow moving around that flywheel, difficult to make money, and you're paying property taxes while you're waiting for that to spin around. Foreclosures, we just covered. This market, not really possible. You're up against full-time investors, and typically you have to be all cash. Number 5, this is a big one, timeshares. A lot of real first-time real estate investors want to buy timeshares. It seems so easy. It's vacation. Let's rent this out. And I hate to break it to you, timeshares are not real estate investing. All right, you're basically buying access to a unit for a week or 2 at a time. Maybe it's multiple units. You're basically buying a membership card. And this is where they get you. And they make it sound shiny and pretty. You're on vacation. They got a huge sales force. They put you in a golf cart, drive you around the community. They are trained professionals to overcome every single objection. So you want to say yes. They've got marks that are actors in the same sort of bus or conference room who pretend like they just bought it, and there's a round of applause and cheering, and those people, you'll see them an hour later doing the same thing. So then you feel like, as a consumer, oh, that person's making the decision, I should make a decision. I want that round of applause. I want to be like them. All these things to make you really feel emotionally that you want to invest in timeshares. Terrible decision. Here's the trap. The likelihood that you're going to have the same week that you get assigned, or 2 weeks or whatever, is that you're going to have that available for the rest of your life is very nil. Spring breaks change all the time. Winter breaks, your kids, or family commitments, they can't do it anymore. They're now doing this camp, they're doing this sport, they're doing this activity. You lost your job, you moved across country, it's too expensive to go there. Kids are older, whatever. Like, you may have some memories, it may work for 2 or 3 short years. But what happens is each year they just jack up the maintenance fees, even though it's brand new. So you're like, oh, right now I can pay whatever, $50 a month for the maintenance fees, but you don't know what your situation is going to be in 3 or 4 years, where it's $200 a month, and then it's $1,000 a month, and that's where they get you, and there's no way to get out of it. No way to get out of it. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'll show you how much timeshares are worth on the aftermarket. Look right here. I went to timeshares for sale that are less than $1. $1, right? Under $1. See, this is my filter on eBay. All I typed in is timeshares for sale under $1. If you can see this, let me zoom in my screen for those on mobile. Thanks for tuning in. Wyndham National Harbor timeshare for sale $1. Las Vegas timeshare $1. Tahiti Village timeshare in Las Vegas $1. Hilton Grand Vacations $1. Villa Beach, California, San Luis Bay $1. Okay, why are these people selling it for $1? Because they want to get out of this maintenance trap. They're trapped in this maintenance of Cocoa Beach, Breckenridge. Let's do this. Grand Timber Lodge, 2-bedroom for $1. Let's see. So this is a starting bid, but a lot of these maintenance fee is $800 a year. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. You can only go at certain times. I want to make sure I'm not just looking at the auctions here. All listing, buy it now. Okay. Buy it now. So these are still $1 buy it now ones. These are not the auctions that we're looking at. They just can't get out. And here's the thing. Where are you going to sell a timeshare? You can't sell it with a realtor on the MLS. You basically can only go to eBay. And this is what you're competing against. You know that entire team that sold you this timeshare to begin with, the carts that you drive you around, the beautiful brochures, the snazzy pickups line, the atmosphere, okay? That still exists in all these timeshares. And now you're saying, hey, I'll sell mine too. I'll sell mine for $1. Like, they're not going to let you drive around on a golf cart on their properties to try to sell your property. And they're not going to let you get in that conference room. And you're not going to get, 50 other couples on vacation and in a good mood in the room at the same time to feed off their energy. You're just a little guy saying, hey, I'll sell my timeshare too. No matter when you want to sell, you're competing against this massive team. And I'm telling you, that massive team is having have trouble selling it. That's why they go through all the bells and whistles. It's difficult for that crew to sell, and then you're going to try to sell on your team on your own. That's a difficult situation. That's a difficult upsell for you. One of my best YouTube videos is actually how to get out of timeshare rentals, and the long and short of it is you don't have many options. And if you're listening to this and you have a timeshare and it's working for you, or you want to get out, I'd start trying to work to get out, because it's not something that's going to, it's not a 6 month decision. It's a year long decision kind of thing. This is the website to go to. If you can see this, it's called tug2.net, TUG2.net. TUG stands for Timeshare Users Group. This is their second version of their website, tug2.net. Not the most brandy and savvy people, but this is the community group of people trying to get out of their timeshares. Whenever you try to call your timeshare company and get out of it, they're going to say, "Well, buy these points and we'll upgrade your service and we'll give you more weeks." Don't do it. You've already spent enough money on this thing. You don't want to spend any more money. And what runs rampant in this timeshare world is you are now a target for every scam in the world, because they're like, wow, if they could fall into this timeshare trap, they can probably fall into these 10 other traps. I could probably sell them a crazy credit card. I could probably sell them an upfront fee. Hey, I'll sell your timeshare, but you got to sell me, give me $5,000 up front and I will go sell your timeshare for you. Oops, sorry, I couldn't sell it, but thanks for the $5,000. Like, you are now got a target on your back as someone who is not making the most savvy decisions. And unfortunately, you are going to be have to navigate a world of predators and pirates and fishers and hackers. But timeshare users group here, tug2.net, helps you navigate that. A second group, if you're looking for one, is also called Red Week. I did all this research before. I've never owned a timeshare, but this is a common question. How the hell do I get out of this timeshare? So I just want to help you if this happens to be you. Redweek.com is sort of another sort of users group that's connected to help you get out of timeshares. Really, it's just a lot of advice, telling you what attorneys to use, not to use, telling you it's a loss clause, telling you it's in your best interest, depending on what property you have, to just bankrupt on it, because you can't even give it away for $1. There is another one. If you happen to own a certain property called Worldmark, if there's a, Worldmark is a timeshare club. That's a brand. You've got your own website here of user groups called Timeshare Angels, timeshareangels.com. So check that out. And the big red font, we never charge any upfront fees. Unfortunately, we will not be able to recover any funds you may have paid to the scammers. I mean, scam alert, like, that's all these websites are scam alerts, because you give an appearance that you fell to one scam, so you'll probably fall to other scams. And so there you have it. These are the big 5 ticket items. Feel free to ask your questions on why I say to avoid for first-time real estate investors. It's a difficult world to navigate out there. I know it can be scary. So if you take these 5 off your plate, then what left over is a very narrow choice, right? So you're going to be looking at existing products that, and then I would say you want to find your criteria. Is it all within the zip code? Is it a certain property type? Property type could be single family, mobile homes, marinas, duplexes, townhomes, whatever it is. Just compare, narrow it down. You're going to be overwhelmed with listings and you're going to freeze. But if you look at 5 of the exact same type of property type that's in the same location, same budget, one is going to shine. One's going to stick out to you. It'll make your decision so easy. You're like, obviously I'll pick this one. It makes me $300 more. Or obviously I'm going to pick this one because it's $2,000 less, or whatever it is. It's going to shine. It's just going to be nice and shiny. And the decision is easy. And then when you make that first property, whether you like it or not, you've now become an expert in that type of property. And so what happens is when you go look at another property, I would say stick to what you bought. Hey, I want to buy something close to this, same type of property. And then all of a sudden, because you know what it'll rent for, you know how long it takes to fill a tenant, you know what the tenants want, you've become an expert in a product because you bought something. And then I would say, go buy a second of that property and then buy a third. And all of a sudden you're the queen of your neighborhood of this property type, or the king, and you know what this is going to sell for, what it's worth. And then the deals start coming to you. Oh, I hear you buy duplexes near the 5 Points subway stop. I've got 2 duplexes coming up. like you now have a reputation as a duplex buyer that buys near that subway stop. So guess what? Every real estate agent, every owner, every investor is going to come to you. Hey, you bought the last three in this zip code. Would you want to buy the fourth one and the fifth one? And that's exactly how you build a reputation for yourself. That's how you get the deals coming to you. So your first one is going to be very difficult to be nice, juicy, because there's so much competition. When you find about it, I have a friend, Mike, in Brooklyn, and he said, hey, I want to go to a really cool warehouse rave party in Brooklyn, but I'm over 40. So if I find out about it, I know it's not going to be a cool rave party. Like, so he's stuck in this thing where it's like, the only parties I'm ever going to find out are going to be the uncool ones where it makes its way to a 40-year-old dude who's not American. And so same sort of thing. You're new investing. You're not going to get the best, juiciest deals on deal number one. And it might not happen number two. Doesn't mean you're going to lose money. You might make some money. It'll be a little bit of money, but it's once you get in the game, that number one, that number two, those juicy deals find you. Those cool warehouse parties in Brooklyn come finding you. Hey, you've been to 3 of the last 2, and then you met this person, and you got this, airdropped to you, or into your phone, some invite. You find a postcard in the bathroom of this lame party, and now like you just got to get in the game, and then you're going to find the cool parties. You got to get into game real estate, and those cool parties are going to find you. Those houses, those deals are going to find you. So there you have it. If you're new investor, 5 things to avoid, some advice to kind of help get you off the hump, to get you moving. Now's a great time. Everyone wants to know about the market. It's going to be crazy. You're going to have some bidding wars. Still a great time. Interest rates are going to be bumping up this year. It's almost guaranteed because inflation's so crazy. The government has to raise the interest rates. It's not going to be, we're at 3.5 now. It might go 3.75, then probably a 4 by the end of the year. Maybe we're looking at 4.25, 4.5 at most. Again, hysterically too, low rates in history. And it shouldn't be a deal breaker. I don't see it dampening prices just because we're in such a housing shortage. Also, the best thing to do as a hedge against against inflation is long-term real estate debt. Lock in a 30-year loan. That's whatever, $1,000 a month. It's going to feel like it's cheaper over time. Your dollar is going to be worth less as we go. So you might as well pay off $1,000 in the future when it has $500 of purchasing power at the store in 10 years, but it still has, $1,000 of purchasing power on your debt. I said that backwards. It'll have, $1,000. You're going to have to spend $2,000 to buy what you can in a store, but you can still pay $1,000 of debt off. So that's the beauty of long-term debt. It's going to feel cheaper as your dollar's purchasing power goes down, but it pays off the same amount of debt. So there you have it. Thanks, guys, for tuning in this episode of the House of AC. I'll see you tomorrow. I live stream every single day. You can watch these videos. And please give me your feedback and reviews. All that helps me make better content for you, better shows. Also helps me in the algorithm. So if you're liking this, hit like right now if you could. And I'll see you next time on the House of AC. Thanks for